Auburn's win over Kentucky should be all the proof of concept you need.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's a Charlie Tuesday, so we're joined by Auburn message board legend Charlie 5, also known as Kyle Rush, over at the Barn, Auburn.com, Auburn's newest, best, most fun, most hype message board, the Barn, Auburn.com. Should Auburn be favored against Vandy this weekend? We touch on that, as well as specifically Keyron Crawford and some of the things Hugh Freeze said about him. But there's all this talk about proof of concept, and a lot of that was tied to recruiting, and that's kind of the early stages of proving yourself as a head coach in your tenure in your current regime to the fan base. And so much of the proof of concept has been tied to the offense, Kyle, because of Peyton Thorne, because of Hugh Freeze being an offensive coach. But the proof of concept that recruits and the young players on this roster and in the locker room are paying attention to is what Hugh Freeze noted yesterday in his press conference. On defense, and the most important drive of the game that ended with a fourth and goal pick by Kayan Lee, he said 6 freshmen played on that drive. That, to me, is the proof of concept that we need to be paying attention to.
Totally. To take it even further,
please.
That game was pretty tight. They got the ball, I think, with 6 minutes and 43 seconds left when they had, I believe, first and goal with 6 minutes and 43 seconds left, if I'm not mistaken. And they took 4 cracks at it, 3 cracks right up the middle. And then the fourth, they tried to pass it. And that whole drive that was an important drive. If they score right there early, if they score on one of those first couple of plays, we get the ball back and we have to chew some clock up or score to put the game away. So you got to have a clutch play. You got to have a big play. You got to have a big stop. And I think it's fantastic. That on that drive, you play 6 freshmen, true freshmen. And then on the interception play, I think you had 4 or 5 freshmen on the field for that very play. That's huge for those guys to not only for themselves, but to show other recruits, hey, look, we're putting these dudes in early and look at the impact they're making. These are the type guys we're bringing in. I mean, that was such a clutch defensive drive. I mean, they did dink and dunk and got some penalties and moved it down the field. But when it was like gut check time, you had freshmen in there making plays. I mean, it was
almost like a blessing in disguise because it ate up like 6 or 7 minutes. And they didn't get any points. So it's like, oh, okay. All right.
It's huge.
In hindsight, that actually kind of worked out. I just, all the talk and the negativity about how this recruiting class isn't going to stay together, or sure, Auburn's got all these talented freshmen, but why would they stay? And I just don't know how you can see these kids playing with such heart and how much they seem to get along with each other and how badly they want to win specifically at Auburn. We talked about this last week. I just don't see it. I don't see the path to them losing. Now, you may not keep everybody, but everybody I've talked to in this locker room seems like they want to win at Auburn. And I think that is something that is being overlooked.
I don't know where the precedent is for starter level guys like just fleeing left and right. You know what I mean? Like when they say hold the roster together, like that sounds like you could have 20 guys go in the portal, like 20 starters go in the portal. No,
that's a great point, because every time you hear something like that, like, oh, the roster fell apart, it's usually after like a coaching change or something.
Yeah. Well, everybody likes to point to Florida last year. Like that's the one that's like the case study. But how many of their, like, did they lose 10, 15 starters? I don't think so. I mean, I know they lost Trevor or whatever the running back is that went to Georgia.
Right.
Who were some other big time starters that they had that went elsewhere? I can't really think of any. I mean, I don't follow Florida that closely, but I just don't think there's a ton of precedent for starters. I don't think there's a ton of precedence for guys that are or upcoming starters just fleeing based off of record. Now, could you lose one or two? Sure. I mean, I think you're going to do that every year regardless, but I don't know. Typically, it's your guys that aren't getting the playing time. They don't see a clear pathway, and maybe they get a bigger offer elsewhere that you would see go, and the record could entice them to want to do that more. But as far as, I mean, man, that drive and getting those dudes out there to Amaris Williams, who hasn't got a ton of time, ton of snaps. He was on for that whole first and goal.
That series there.
Yep. He was there for the whole time. Like, he was getting not just minutes, but not just snaps, but very like game crucial snaps. Like that's the kind of stuff you got to have from those guys. And if they can see their pathway in, I just don't think there's a ton of things you can point to where if the coach it's the same coach and it's a starter level guy, like how many of those dudes are going elsewhere? I don't think that really is out there.
Yeah. And when you talk about the future of the program, I also think it's important to talk about the guys that Freeze and the staff bring in from the high school level, or they bring it from the portal with the future in mind. So not guys with like 1 or 2 years left of eligibility, like guys who they see being a part of the program for the foreseeable future. And I mean, everybody wants to pick on Peyton Thorne, and I like Peyton Thorne. He's been super professional and friendly every time we've spoken, but Peyton Thorne's not the future of this program. And that's what people are acting like it is. It's Hank, it's Walker, it's Deuce Knight. And I think you judge the future off of that. To say like Hugh Freeze isn't a good coach because of quarterback play, and it's like, well, the quarterback situation is going to change in just a few games. So to me, like that's not an argument. I don't think.
No, I mean, look, Hugh made a gamble. He made a gamble in the offseason. Mm-hmm. I'm good enough. I can build around Thorne. I can take, maybe some money or NIL that was set aside for, a big time quarterback. And, I can not just continue to go down the rung after rung after rung, going after quarterback, just completely shattering any chemistry you have in your quarterback room, saying, I'm just going to keep going down because anybody I get is going to be better. He made a gamble, and Thorne still struggles with some of the things that he struggled with last year, but he's played better. He's played pretty solid football. I mean, after the interception on Saturday, he went 15 of 16 and kind of managed the game, made some big third down.
Freeze kind of defended Peyton's interception yesterday at his presser, saying Malcolm ran the wrong route. So maybe that wasn't on Peyton.
Yeah, or not all. Maybe I still feel like you got to
held on some of it for a long time. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But you take a gamble and it doesn't work. That doesn't mean that's who you are forever. I mean, again, I always when I talk about Hugh Freeze, when you talk about Hugh Freeze, if there was a track record, if you can point to a track record of issues at quarterback, then I'm like, okay, it's the same thing, Hugh. What's the deal? But it's just not there. It's just not there. Every quarterback that's a lot of times quarterbacks that are less gifted than Peyton Thorne physically have been able to do some very special things in that offense. So that's what gives me the hope. And I guess just that's the proof of concept to me.
So early in coaching tenures, you look at proof of concept, and I think it's there. I just think a lot of Auburn fans are looking in the wrong place. I think they're looking in the wrong place. So, hey, Keyron Crawford, his game on Saturday, like obviously it was big and he was a big part of this, but Auburn needs Keyron Crawford to do that on a regular basis for the future of this program. And let's jump into that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by Roy. Roy stands for Return on You. They want you to get into the NIL game. And every week, Kyle, every single week, we get a Roy Player of the Week. Boy, is it easy this week.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Jarquez Hunter is the Auburn Roy Player of the Week. So
Roy, pay that man.
Yeah, Roy's pitching in $100, and you can join Roy in doing that. Even $10 make a difference. So show Jarquez Hunter the love and keep him connected to Auburn. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscription and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return on you. Check them out for more details. Roy, support the players and change the game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Keyron Crawford, Hugh Freeze says it was his best game since he's been at Auburn, which is correct. That is, I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. He did a better job with containment. He did a better job as a pass rusher. He did a better job of just, everything. Winning at the point of attack. He was a solid piece of the defense. Here's why this is so important, Kyle. You lose J-Mac this offseason. He's going to the league. Rightfully so. I think he's going to find a home on a team, and I think he's going to have a pretty solid NFL career. But you look at the roster after this. Edge rushers are expensive. Yeah. They're expensive in December, as they should be. It's a very, very important position. You need Keyron Crawford to be the leader of that room, because if he can do what we think J-Mac is able to do, and he takes a step like J-Mac was able to do since getting here, you don't have to go get one in the portal because of the true freshman of Amaris Williams, who we're seeing more and more of. Keldrick Falk, I think, is going to offer the versatility to give you that if you need to, as well as some of these true freshmen that are coming in, whether it's Jared Smith, whether it's JJ Falk, or, some of these other true freshmen that are here and could take that step forward this offseason. So Keyron Crawford, he doesn't have to be the guy because of Keldrick Falk, but, man, he's got to be a piece. And what we saw on Saturday proved that he can be that.
I think he can be. You said he doesn't have to be the guy. I think he can be the guy, though. That
would be great.
Hugh mentioned in his press conference today, Keldrick had 2 sacks. I think he said both of those sacks were because Keyron flushed the quarterback directly into him.
Yeah.
So in other words, Keyron Crawford set him up and then Falk spiked it. No, he kind of came out of nowhere. He's been sort of an afterthought, I guess, basically all year. And then he shows up and he's shown flashes, but he showed it consistently over a game. And you're right. That's the key thing. You don't have to go get a portal pass rusher. You don't have to. You have DeMarcus Riddick that can rush the passer that behind him. You have Jamonta Waller, a top 100 recruit who broke his foot, has been redshirted. You have Joseph Phillips, another top recruit that they're talking about. Hey, you may start seeing a little bit more of him towards down the stretch because, that whole red shirt rule. I don't think he's registered, but maybe snaps in one game. So he's got 4 total that he can play in. There could be some games that you see him coming up. You got some really young studs, and you just mentioned a couple more, and they've shown Durkin's shown he's not scared to put freshmen in there, especially guys highly rated that come in ready to play. I think that's so valuable. That's so incredibly valuable because I know he's got to keep it going, and you got to keep pushing it. It's not just like a one game, one hitter quitter. You got to have a consistent body of work, but he's got the tools to be that guy to save that NIL money, free up Auburn for so much more.
Keyron's issues early on, I don't think were really like pass rush moves. I think his motor was there. It was lack of discipline as far as setting an edge. And that seemed to be way better against Kentucky. And that's just a coaching thing or reps thing and just kind of understanding what your role is in the big picture. And not that he didn't understand it, but it's just the SEC. It's going to move faster than he's used to playing in the Sun Belt with Arkansas State. So to me, I think the game's probably slowing down a little bit for him at this point. He's understanding the defense a little bit more, and also I know you said that he could be the guy, but he doesn't have to be, which I think is a huge part of this. You're going to lose J-Mac, who is a massive piece in this. But I just think with the collection of names that you just said, especially Jamonta, and that injury stinks, and hopefully it doesn't hinder him much this offseason where he can kind of put in the work to take that step from freshman to sophomore. But I think one of these guys is going to take a big enough step. It may not be as dramatic as Keldrick Fawkes was from freshman to sophomore year, but even if you're close to that, and maybe you get that from two guys, maybe you get that from Riddick and Amaris Williams, then all of a sudden, like, that's a problem for opposing offenses to deal with. A problem that Auburn hasn't presented to an opposing offense in a hot minute.
Yeah, outside of the last one you could think of, from a pass rushing perspective, maybe a Jeff Holland, but that's one guy. Or, you had
one or
Derek.
two, Marlon and Derek or whatever. It's always been two guys, it seems like.
Yeah,
you may have three or four at this point.
Exactly. And dudes behind them that could come and just give you a handful of snaps a game and be really good. Yeah, you have a lot of young, freaky athletes that are coming in, that are here, that are coming in, that are going to just be another year better, another year stronger. A lot of options, a lot of cool things you could probably do on the defensive line. And I know DJ Durkin's probably licking his chops, but the key is Keyron Crawford being able to keep them from not having to go spend extra money to bring in another guy to add to that room that could cause somebody to transfer, could do this, could do that. Keyron Crawford's here, he's locked in, and he's showing that he can be a factor, and I think that's invaluable. Yeah,
because I don't think you need multiple upperclassmen at that position, but you do need one, and Keyron can be that one.
Sure.
So
I can see it.
Take that for what it's worth. So I think his impact on Saturday is larger than just helping Auburn secure a win and shutting down Kentucky's offense. I think it goes bigger than that, but he's got to do it more than once. Can he do it against Vanderbilt? Can he do it against a team that he's supposed to in ULM?
Vanderbilt's going to test that. You talked about setting the edge and being disciplined and all that stuff. Vanderbilt's going to be a massive test because that is triple option, eye candy, all about discipline. So he's going to be he could be a big factor in that game.
Great point. It's a great point for sure. So yeah, Keyron Crawford, congrats to your massive game on Saturday. Hopefully it means more for the edge position moving forward. Should Auburn actually be favored on Saturday? I don't think they should. Kyle, I am dying to hear your thoughts on this. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. Kyle, can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Can't do it. Won't do it.
Nope. It's all about FanDuel. It's all about FanDuel.
All about FanDuel, baby.
Hey, right now you can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So the FanDuel Sportsbook app, it gives you everything you need to do live betting on the NFL or college football, but all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. We're going to talk more about the line in a second, but FanDuel has Auburn -6.5 as we sit down to record this. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. Final few minutes on today's edition of Locked On Auburn. Kyle Rush at thebarnauburn.com joining me today. You laugh when I say your name. You laugh
every time. It's weird every time. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I mean, it was 3 years, and all of a sudden we're just switching things up.
It was a big shift. But like, I call you Kyle when we hang out. I don't know. It just feels weird whenever we do this, and I actually call you by your real name. So I don't know what's going on there. Okay, so when we look at this line, I was surprised. In fact, I ran into you at church and I told you what the line was. And you're like, really? What, in your mind, should Auburn be favored? And then why do you think they are favored?
All right. So number one, I thought Auburn would be favored inside of a touchdown. So that's kind of where I was expecting. You get three points for being a home game, and in theory is what they say. I was thinking, a 2.5. I mean, I don't know, maybe not even a 2.5, maybe more like 1.5 point favorite. Mostly because I just think at the end of the day, if the game plays out kind of like the Kentucky, I think you can physically match up with Vanderbilt, and I think it's at home, and regardless of the clutchness that Diego Pavia has, I don't know, man. I just think you got the athletes to hang with them. You got the crowd. You'll have the crowd. You'll have a little bit to play for, a little bit of fire after a win. And I think Diego's a little bit hobbled from what I understand. I think he missed a little bit.
Yeah, he went out of the game.
Came out of the game. He's got an ankle issue. I don't know if that plays into it.
Arrow reminded me last year it was questionable if he would play, and he came in and looked great. So I don't even know.
See, I don't remember that. He's just a killer. So who knows? But yeah, look, not
that
only
it factor is insane.
If that's a measurable thing, you could.
It's unbelievable.
He
like
does.
The moxie that guy has.
Moxie, it factor, all those catchphrases, he has all of them. So
all of them.
But what's crazy is it opened at 5.5 and it's gone up a point. So money is on Auburn right now. For it to go that way. So
I am so pleased. Vegas, FanDuel, they are betting, like they are begging you
to take
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they're begging you to. So what does that mean?
I don't know. Like, I love it. I think it's great. I think it kind of solidifies a lot of the things that we're hoping to happen being realistic. Like Vandy not being as good away from Nashville, like this game being personal for a lot of these Auburn, the Auburn defense in particular. How rowdy I think the Auburn fans in attendance at Jordan-Hare Stadium are going to be when Diego
How hungry they are.
Oh,
they
my goodness.
Be hungry too.
Yeah, it's been 4 years since there's been a home game, it feels like.
Yeah.
But when they see Diego Pavia come out of there, like they are going to yell at him and boo him, and he's probably going to love it because
every
it factor is insane. It may just fuel his game, but it's going to be awesome. Like the atmosphere of this, like this wasn't the game on the schedule that we were circling going into the season. We're like, oh, Jordan-Hare is going to be on fire. And funny enough, like this one, and then when A&M comes to town, assuming they're still as hot as they are, like, oh my goodness, get a seat right now. Download the Game Time app and get a ticket right now for either of these two games because it's going to be the place to be.
Oh yeah, is Vanderbilt? Are they still ranked? I know. I guess they probably dropped out since they lost to Texas. But you had them.
But they got to keep Missouri ranked. God forbid Missouri not be ranked for some reason.
Yeah. So I think the score was closer than the actual game was against Texas. But still hanging in there to kind of giving them a shot. They're going to come in that they want to win. Diego Pavia wants to go back to back, I'm sure. Hugh mentioned, hey, I'm tired of this guy. I'm ready to get rid of this guy. I'm ready to you got to know there's something personal. There's a little bit personal on the line with Hugh. And it is kind of funny that the personal, get him fired up. It would be the quarterback for Vanderbilt. I think that's kind of funny. But man, these last couple of games at home could be, some pretty nice games.
If they beat Vandy, let's just dream just for a second here.
Okay.
Just for a second. But if you beat Vandy, take care of ULM. You just look at these final two games against Texas A&M, who may be top 5 at that point, probably top 8. I think they're 10th right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if they keep winning and just the nature of it, they'll continue to move up. And then you go on the road to play Alabama. If you can win one of those,
just split them. Yeah.
If you win one of those, like, sure, you're 6-6, but man, it feels so much better than that.
It does. It feels so much better to win 4. What is it? Would that be 4 out of your last 5 to finish the season? Is that what that would be?
I think
yeah. That'd feel a whole lot better than if you won 4 out of your first 5 and then lost, lost 2 out of your last.
One of those would be an extremely high quality win. The loss would be a high quality loss, assuming you split A&M and Bama. We're dreaming here.
Sure.
And then like the Vandy wins, like nothing to scoff at.
Sure.
And you went on the road in the SEC and you beat a Kentucky team, which everybody was telling me all season, like how tough it is to win in Lexington at night. And then it's like, oh, okay. All right. I don't think that's the flex y'all thought it was, but whatever.
If you had to pick one that you feel better about, Texas A&M or Alabama, which one is it?
That I feel better, like which one's more likely for Auburn to win?
Which one do you think is more likely?
A&M at home.
Really?
A&M
See,
at
I
home.
think it's Alabama, and this is why. I think, okay, I think the matchup for A&M, matchup for us is bad because of how physical that front is for Texas A&M when we struggle throwing the ball. Okay, so I think we'd have issues running the ball, and that might make it tougher, obviously, for this offense. And then A&M's not necessarily explosive on offense, but they're talented enough that they can lean on you enough to make something happen. And then that Marcel Reed's kind of a wild card of what he can do. So that, to me, I feel like Alabama, you could probably push Alabama around a little bit, and you could match up with them, I think, on especially on offense. So that's the only reason I feel like, I if I had got to pick one, I think I'd take Alabama, to be honest.
Yeah, which is wild, and everything you say makes sense. It's just kind of wild that that's where we are this season. I think being home is a big deal.
It is.
I also think there's elements of the A&M thing that it sounds dumb, but we see it happen all the time where like a first-year head coach who's hot, and he's games away from potentially making the college football playoff.
Dropping one he shouldn't drop or something.
Yeah, like tripping over himself. He's also got Texas next week. So like, how does that play into it? I'm not worried about them looking ahead or anything like that, but could be a factor. And just, I mean, how many times the top 10 teams come into Jordan-Hare Stadium and it's just like a cakewalk, like,
yeah, you're right.
They've got a shot. And Hugh knows, Hugh Freeze and this staff know if they win that game, depending on if everything else happens, that every storyline about how he's not a good coach goes away. All of them.
And another thing is at that point in time, that's it. Also, we're talking about if Auburn's, won 3 in a row, and you got these young guys now that they're feeling confident, that does kind of change things. And now they're at home again with a chance to knock off probably a top 10 team, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I said,
if you beat A&M, why can't you go on the road and beat Bama at that point? I mean, Auburn would be one of the hotter teams in the conference at that point.
Which would be crazy to think about, but you're right.
We're dreaming. The boog is strong, but we'll
easy
see.
To boog after a win. It's hard.
Yeah, they got to be.
It was rough the last several weeks.
Yeah, they got to beat Vandy. Yeah, it's just like, oh, finally, I get like a dose of oxygen again. I could breathe again. The boog is strong. Okay. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
Absolutely. Subscribe to thebarnauburn.com. $1 for the first month. Only a little while longer. You can take advantage of that. And then it's just $9.95 a month after that. Great deal. Low risk. If you hate it, you're only out $1. And you can join the conversation. We got basketball coming up. We had play-by-play from the scrimmage. We're going to have a lot of notes that you may get elsewhere, but we think we got pretty good information there as well. You got recruiting season's kicking up. You got signing day on, a little over a month away. Portal season's coming up. You got to get signed up, got to get ready for that because it's going to be a lot of fun. Jump in the conversation. Then you can follow me on Twitter, _Charlie_5. Find me every single day on the Top Button podcast.
Yeah. You can check out some of the stuff I put up at thebarnauburn.com as well. So go subscribe. Hey, like the video, subscribe to Locked On Auburn. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.